Hello, my name's Lizzie Wright and I'm an English teacher from Bathgate Academy, and I'm also the leader of the English network in West Lothian. So I'm going to talk you through how we use the PLC notebook model to organise a moderation event that happened on Friday the 5th of March, which involved all 11 schools in the authority and over 80 practitioners. So in terms of a little bit about the West Lothian context then and our approach to moderation, it's very much focused on the SQA position of ensuring that provisional results from schools are robust, reliable and valid, and also based on existing evidence. So it was decided that the focus of this session then should be moderating the evidence that we did have, which was folios. In doing so, we were hoping to have an increased kind of understanding of SQA assessment standards around the folio, and also in the application of these standards to our own learner evidence. A byproduct of this was hopefully going to be the creation of annotated exemplars to be used as a resource by practitioners across the authority to help support them in making their own judgments this session. In doing so, we were aiming to create an increased consistency in the application of assessment standards and therefore fairness and equity across the authority. And finally, also in terms of operational practicality, introducing this as a model to be used for quality assurance and moderation activities, and kind of set the stage for using this model moving forward. So ahead of time, these are some of the things that I did ahead of time, and 95% of the work happened before the event. It was as front-loaded as possible, and it began with me gathering examples of different folios from different schools. So that's different genre, different level, and different kind of quality. Then I created cluster channels and notebooks within those cluster channels, which were then populated with the exam components. So you can see here, groups of schools were allocated to a cluster, and then within their notebooks, it was populated with the different exam components. Then I organised staff from all of the schools into trios and groups of 4. Then they were assigned a level and a genre to look at. And then I kind of created meeting posts for each group. So to make sure that each group could find all of the resources that they needed and that were specific to their level and genre on the day. Notebook pages were made to reflect groupings as well, so that if you were in, so let's have a wee example. So here, for instance, if you were looking at National 5 Broadly Creative and you're in Group 1, you would look back here, National 5 Broadly Creative, and you'll be able to see Group 1 with your initials there. So each notebook page had anonymized scripts inserted as PDFs, with all the rubrics and marking instructions necessary there, as well as SQA understanding standards material, which were linked in the notebook and also on team meeting posts. So here's one example of kind of them inserted as PDF printouts. And yeah. Also, how-to videos were posted ahead of time, so explaining and showing people around the notebooks, and PTCs dedicated some time to this in meetings the week of the event. I very much preface this event as well with the idea that this is a learning curve, and we're very much learning how to use the system together, and there would be teething problems, technology would perhaps let us down, but as a model we just needed to kind of become more familiar with this so that we could move forward using it. So how it ran on the day, in terms of my job on the day, I didn't actually do a whole lot, because 95% of the work had happened before. My main role was tech support and kind of making sure that people could find their meetings. And this is generally how it ran for the groups. So a lead teacher began the meeting in their cluster channel by replying to their post and labeling it clearly, and then people navigated their way to that meeting. In replying to the post, what that did was anchor the meeting to that post, and that meant that people could navigate their way to their meeting through 2 key ways. They could scroll through the feed to find their post, or when you have multiple meetings and you have them listed on the side of your team, they could see, right, that's Group 1 National 5 Broadly Creative, I'll join that. Then there were authority updates in video form and how-to in video form. There was no central meeting because we're such a large group. It takes so much time to gather us. And then people were given time to assess individually, and they could make notes in the template underneath the PDF printouts, or they could annotate directly onto the scripts. And so we have a couple of examples here. You can see this is one kind of screenshot taken from a notebook where people have chosen to directly annotate onto the PDF. Here as well is an example of a completed table where each teacher has recorded their individual thoughts about each candidate response before discussion. In terms of what happened next then, they obviously discussed each piece in turn, and the recording of the discussion was very much a collective endeavour, which they then synthesised into a kind of commentary of agreed marks and reasoning behind those. So all in all, yeah. And here is a photo I took on the day, mainly because I'd never seen that many meetings running before. Didn't know it was possible, but it definitely worked. So yeah, and here's some feedback. I won't go through it in detail, but key themes from the feedback, overwhelmingly positive. Many people commenting on how well organised and an enjoyable way to moderate it was, and that basically, despite some anxiety around using Notebook, actually it was much easier than they thought. And yeah, people very much enjoyed the smaller group sizes and also the ability to actually go in and read other teachers' commentary on exactly the same pieces that they'd assessed and moderated themselves. So yeah. So in terms of meeting our desired outcomes, based on the feedback, we met our outcomes. We have an increased understanding of SQA assessment standards and how to apply these standards to our own learner evidence. I'm in the process of creating the annotated exemplars. It's definitely an Easter job. And, hopefully as a result, we'll see an increased consistency in the application of assessment standards and an increase in the fairness and equity that characterises our judgments. Also, lots and lots of feedback about how this was a model that people felt all moderation should be done this way. And yeah, so in terms of operational practicality, I think we met that as well. We definitely introduced the authority to this model. So overall then, some comments then, I think, to take away are overwhelmingly, it was very positive in terms of feedback. One thing that I particularly like about this is that there is extensive evidence of quality assurance and moderation activities. This wasn't the most detailed example that we could have chosen. Recording individual responses and, them not going anywhere is a really valuable thing. There were some frustrations with technology. So some people found it kind of clunky to scroll through certain things and then have to click around to find things. So that is definitely something that I would look to streamline. But equally, I was surprised by the number of people who were very positive about using it and how people were pleasantly surprised that it wasn't as difficult as they thought it was going to be. I also think, so here's one such example of an annotated exemplar that is in the making. And yeah, so moving forward, I think that's going to be an incredibly valuable resource, not just for this session, but actually for future sessions. Yeah. So top tips then, know your teams. This is the kind of, I was lucky to know my team, to know enough about my team to actually be able to organise them properly. When you are organising your groups, make sure that you have someone with SQA expertise in each group, if possible, and also make sure that you have someone who can navigate Notebook, can share their screen in case other people are like, oh, I don't know how to do anything. And what that meant actually was that people on the day could all see the same thing. They might not be able to navigate to it themselves, but they could see how it works. And they were being shown, actually you can annotate directly onto a PDF. So it was very, very useful in kind of strengthening the digital literacy in general across practitioners in the authority. How-to videos are invaluable if you have a larger group. Lots of people commented on how nice it was to have a visual kind of tour of how things would work. Label meetings if you have more than two. And that is because, the main problems we ran into on the day were actually where people hadn't labeled their meetings. And if there are 7 meetings running in a channel, it became quite difficult for people to identify which meeting they needed to be in. And that was my main role, was kind of escorting people to their meetings virtually. So the other thing I would say is obviously make use of the new SQA Understanding Standards material to help support dialogue and distribute this beforehand. Distributing everything beforehand is central and is key. So we made use of the kind of borderline responses and the commentaries that have been provided by the SQA, and that was really, really valuable. Contingency planning, I think, is really important. I made sure that all the PDFs, all the marking instructions were also in the files section of each channel, so that even if Notebook wasn't working for someone, they could still access the materials and leave their responses in comments. And finally, I think that at a departmental level, this is an ideal model. You set up your PLC notebook in advance, and basically when you moderate as a department, you replace the paper copies of scripts with PDFs and you use a template. And what that means is that all of your quality assurance and all of your moderation evidence is in one place. Members can refer back to it and use it as guidance on an ongoing basis. For you as a PTC, a quality assuring evidence is easy to access. And also the longevity of this model means that you can actually build evidence of quality assurance from beginning to end of the session. It also doesn't have to be an event. So we only had 90 minutes on that Friday afternoon and we got a lot done. But you could equally have people uploading 1 or 2 essays to be looked at that week by other teachers when they have a chance, and they can leave their comments when they get a chance. And so it's very much something that people return to when they have time. And I know that this is something that they do in the geography network in West Lothian. So that's everything. I hope that was useful. I'm always at the end of an email. Thank you.